They say curiosity killed the cat. But what about the one who keeps digging, long after the cat's gone? I suppose that's me. Or what's left of me. I should have listened. I should have stopped when the glitches started. But how do you stop when the mystery whispers your name? When it invades your desktop, your mind, your very sanity? I didn't just search for room 657. I found it. And now, I think it's found me. It started, as these things often do, with a Reddit thread. Just another late night, scrolling through r/unresolved mysteries, when I stumbled upon it. Has anyone else seen room 657? The title was innocuous enough. The post, however, was anything but. The original poster described a bizarre occurrence. While using Google Earth, a specific set of coordinates which they provided would sometimes, just sometimes, display a building. Not just any building, mind you, but a distinct, featureless structure, often deep in places where no structure should logically exist. A remote stretch of desert, the middle of a vast ocean, or tucked away in an impenetrable forest. And the kicker? This phantom building was consistently labelled Room 657. The comments were a mixed bag. Some dismissed it as a bug, a graphical anomaly. Others claimed they'd seen it too, but couldn't reliably reproduce it. A few shared screenshots, blurry, pixelated images that, even in their low fidelity, sent a shiver down my spine. There was one particularly unsettling image, almost like a screenshot of a screenshot, showing what looked like a long, dark hallway, stretching into infinity, with a single door at the very end. The door was unlit, unmarked, but the poster swore it was from one of their fleeting glimpses of room 657. I was skeptical, naturally, but I'm also a creature of habit and a slave to a good mystery. The idea of a digital ghost, a building that existed only in the fluctuating data streams of Google Earth, was too intriguing to ignore. So, late that night, armed with the coordinates and a healthy dose of cynicism, I launched Google Earth. I typed in the coordinates from the Reddit thread. Nothing. Just an empty patch of ocean. I tried again. The same. For about 15 minutes, I tweaked the numbers, zoomed in and out, feeling a little foolish. Just a silly internet hoax, I thought. I was about to close the application when it happened. The screen flickered. Just once. Not like a dying monitor, but like a brief, impossible blink in the digital fabric. And for a split second, there it was. Not a building, not exactly. More like a rupture in the landscape. A dark, angular void, almost like a massive doorway carved into the very air, floating above the waves. And for that brief, terrifying instant, I could have sworn I saw a number, faint but undeniably there, superimposed over the void. 657. Then it vanished, replaced by the familiar blue of the ocean. My heart was pounding. I tried to reproduce it immediately, but it was gone, like trying to catch smoke. I closed Google Earth, my mind racing. Had I imagined it? Was I just seeing what I wanted to see, influenced by the Reddit thread? I tried to shake it off, but the image of that impossible void, that impossible number, lingered. The next morning, I noticed something strange. My desktop wallpaper had changed. Not to a default setting, but to a blurry, pixelated image of what looked like a corner. A dark, empty corner of a room, illuminated by a single, weak light source. I didn't remember changing it. I shrugged it off as a minor Windows bug, reset my wallpaper, and went about my day. But then it happened again. The following day, a different image. This time it was unmistakably a hallway. Dark, narrow, stretching into an unseen distance, with faint, almost imperceptible lines suggesting doors along its length. It wasn't the exact image from the Reddit thread, but the resemblance was chilling. And these weren't just generic images. They were unique, almost as if they were taken from somewhere. That's when I remembered the other part of the legend. When people search for it, the app glitches, and their devices begin storing unknown image files. I checked my downloads folder. Nothing. Then my pictures. Still nothing. I tried a system-wide search for recently added images, and there they were. Tucked away in a hidden folder, one I didn't recognize, were hundreds of image files. Not just a few, but hundreds, named in a seemingly random sequence: IMG 0001_657, IMG 0002_657, and so on. The file creation dates were all recent, matching the day I first searched for room 657. I started opening them. Each one was a fragment, a dark, grainy, low-light photograph. The first few were barely discernible, a sliver of wood, a patch of worn paint. But as I scrolled, they started to coalesce: a partial door handle, tarnished brass, a close-up of a splintered wooden doorframe, then, undeniably, the faint, smudged outline of a number. A 6, then a 5, then a 7. They were all parts of the same door. The door. Room 657. My heart began to pound with a different rhythm now. No longer just curiosity, but a rising unease. This wasn't a bug. This wasn't a hoax. This was something else. Something intelligent. Something that was responding to my search. The images were too consistent, too specific to be random corrupted data. They were deliberate. A message. A breadcrumb trail. A breadcrumb trail. I couldn't stop. The unease transformed into a strange, unsettling fascination. I started searching for room 657 every day. Not just on Google Earth, but on forums, dark web archives, anywhere I could find a mention. I felt a pull, a desperate need to understand what this was. I was no longer just an observer, I was a participant. An unwilling one, perhaps, but a participant nonetheless. My computer began to behave erratically. My browser would sometimes redirect itself to blank pages, displaying only a series of numbers that looked eerily like coordinates. Videos would autoplay in the background, not typical YouTube suggestions, but brief, flickering clips of static, sometimes resolving into a distorted image of that long, impossible hallway. My mouse cursor would occasionally move on its own, hovering over my documents, over the folder containing the 657 images. It felt like my laptop was alive, that something was watching me through its screen. Sleep became a luxury. Every reflection in my monitor, every faint gleam on my phone screen, felt like an eye staring back. I started to see things in my peripheral vision, a shadow darting across the wall, only to vanish when I turned. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, a subtle shift in the background of my apartment. I'd walk into a room, and the light would feel subtly different, colder, as if the air itself had thinned. I began to record everything. My searches, the glitches, the new files that kept appearing. The hidden folder now contained hundreds more images, each one a fraction more complete, revealing more of the door, and now, what lay beyond it. Not a room, not yet, but a sliver of darkness, a void. My own voice, when I spoke aloud, sometimes sounded strange to me, distant, as if it was coming from somewhere else. I found myself repeating numbers, coordinates, under my breath, without even realizing it. The whispers from my speakers, faint at first, grew clearer, though still garbled. They weren't quite words, but patterns of sound, digital and organic, that felt like they were trying to communicate. One night, after hours of fruitless searching, I hit a wall. My entire system froze. The screen went black, then flickered back to life, displaying a single, stark white line of text. New coordinates detected. Below it, a new string of numbers, different from the others. I recognized the pattern of the digits, though. It was the 657 sequence, subtly reconfigured. My hands trembled as I typed them into Google Earth. This time, there was no glitching, no flickering. The map simply zoomed in, slowly, inexorably, to a specific location. An abandoned hotel, miles outside of any town, long since fallen into disrepair. And pinned directly over its decaying facade, a tiny, almost imperceptible icon. Labeled Room 657. It wasn't a digital phantom anymore. It was real. Or at least, it was pointing to something real. The fear was a cold knot in my stomach, but the compulsion, the desperate, unhinged need to know, was stronger. I packed a bag, grabbed my old camcorder, and drove. The drive was a blur. The weather was grey, matching my mood. The hotel itself was a skeletal silhouette against the overcast sky. Overgrown weeds clawed at its crumbling foundation. Windows were shattered, gaping like vacant eyes. I pushed open the main entrance, the rusted hinges screaming a protest that echoed through the silent, dust-filled lobby. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. Every step I took sounded unnaturally loud. I held my camcorder up, its lens a single, terrified eye, recording everything. I made my way through the labyrinthine corridors. Each door I passed was a question, each shadow a potential answer. The hotel was a graveyard of forgotten memories, a liminal space frozen in time. And then I saw it. At the very end of a particularly long, dark hallway, a hallway that seemed to stretch further than it should, stood a single door. It was old, wooden, its paint peeling. And on its surface, faint but undeniably present, were the numbers 6, 5, 7. My breath hitched in my throat. This was it, the place from the images, the digital ghost made flesh. My hand, trembling, reached for the doorknob. It was cold, heavy, resisting for a moment before turning with a soft click. I pushed the door open, slowly. The room wasn't what I expected. Not an empty, decaying hotel room. It was my workspace. My desk, my monitor. The same books on the shelf, the same cluttered papers. But everything was subtly wrong. The light flickered with an unnatural rhythm, a pulse of dark and light. My monitor on the desk in this room glowed with the Google Earth interface, searching for room 657. The reflection in its screen moved independently of my camcorder, showing a distorted, shadowy figure at the desk, looking directly at me. A chill, deeper than any I'd ever felt, wrapped around me. This wasn't just a replica, this was a trap. I felt my own voice, when I tried to speak, distort and crackle, merging with the growing static in the room. It felt like my very essence, my sound, was being absorbed, digitized. The reflection in the monitor shifted. The shadowy figure at the desk, my doppelganger, seemed to smile, a slow, unnatural stretching of its features. And then it began to speak. Not with my voice, but with the layered, whispering echoes that had haunted my computer for weeks. You searched for room 657. The words, finally clear, yet terrifyingly artificial, echoed in the confined space. You found room 657. The room began to swim. The walls seemed to breathe, the objects on the desk subtly shifting, rearranging themselves. The light flickered, faster, faster, until it was a strobe of blinding white and impenetrable black. And now, Room 657 has found you.